Back to the show.
Thank you.
And this is a big summer at Richmond Brothers because this summer marks the 25th anniversary of the firm. Congratulations.
Thank you. Big blowout summer.
Right. About 25 years ago, you were still probably a student at Vandercook Lake.
I was actually a student at Vandercook Lake, and I joined with John and his brother Dave Richmond back in 1997. So 3 years after they kind of came together and founded the business in August of '94. So it's an exciting 22 years for me, but 25 years for the firm, and we're proud of that and proud to be right here in Jackson and helping retirees and others with their investments right in this local area and all over the country, but most are from this area.
Well, when you started, because the firm was so new, you probably had no idea that 23, 25 years later, you'd be the president of the company. I
had no idea that I would still be working at the same firm and so deeply involved in it, but I think we've talked before, being born and raised here in Jackson, I was very fortunate to, at a young age, find a path and a career right here in Jackson, and try to help other young professionals see that there are a lot of great things here and keep that positive vibe going.
Awesome. What were you thinking when you left Vandercook? What was your intended career path?
So actually, before I'd met John and Dave, my intended career path was to be an engineer. And I did an internship through a program that Patty Schaefer, who's a retired teacher at Vandercook, had, community as schools. And if you had a good enough GPA and you were respected in the community, they would let you go out and job shadow. And I shadowed a lot of engineers and discovered it was not for me. And randomly met one of the Richmond brothers and showed compound returns, and it was very intriguing. And I called and said, "Can I intern at your company?" And they said, "Well, we've never had an intern. Do we have to pay you?" And I said, "No, I'm in high school." And the rest, I suppose, is history.
Wow, how about that? Well, congratulations. I know there'll be some celebrations and more in the months ahead.
Thank you.
Well, there's so much going on in Washington, and I think there's a lot of things still up in the air as legislation is just forming and passing through either one chamber or the other. Who knows if it gets passed, and then again if it even gets signed into law. And one of those things is the Secure Act. What is the Secure Act?
So the Secure Act, without spelling it all out, has a lot to do with retirement vehicles, IRAs, and different rules that have been the same in the tax code for many, many years. These are proposed changes. This has not actually changed yet. It's passed through the House of Representatives, but it's on the Senate's desk right now. But being that we work with retirees and a lot of retirement accounts for people here in Jackson, we try to stay very up on potential changes in the tax code so that if they do come through the line, we already have enough knowledge to then help our clients act on the new rules. And so a couple of, I think, key pieces with this. If you were a worker who had a 401k or a 403b and you've saved and a few years have gone by and you're now at the magical age of 70 and 1/2 years old, the government's trying to clean that up, and there's a mandated distribution if you're not already taking income. Every year we have to watch, and it's a big deal because if you ever miss it, the penalty the IRS imposes is 50% of
50?
50. It's the biggest penalty in the tax code if you miss it.
And that's if you miss taking a distribution?
At 70 and a half or older. And so they're looking at changing from 70 and a half to 72, which is somewhat comical, but at least it gets rid of the half year. Because imagine if I was born, and I was a retiree, and I was born July 1st. I don't turn 70 and a half until January 1st of the next year. So when they actually get it down to just 72, if that's the case, one, people are living longer, so they can extend it hopefully a little bit longer. And so that's one big change. And if anyone around here is doing qualified charitable distributions, which the IRS allows you to take those minimums, pay them directly to a charity, and you can do up to 100 grand a year, or your minimum. If you were not until 72, you now have to wait 1.5 years to start doing those. There's a lot of people we're trying to educate about that topic because it saves them on taxes. Charities can get more money here right locally in Jackson. And so, again, not law yet, but it's a proposed change from 70 and a half to 72.
And that really is, as you said, in keeping with the fact that people are living longer, but the magical age of 65, which was chosen for no other reason. It was completely, they picked it, they just decided that sounded like a good number. But that was in the 30s.
Yep.
And in terms of Social Security and,
Yep.
and all the distribution. Is there any chance, because I think we've heard talk about it, that those ages might inch up to keep in line with the aging
Population. I think it's a great question, and a lot of people have the same question. So while there's nothing in this bill around Social Security, there are some things that it could affect. So the age 65, for example, when Social Security first came out, life expectancy average was 70. So on average, people would live 5 years beyond there. And now if you look at updated tables, you can see anywhere from 85 to 87. But people are still retiring at 60, 62, 65, so their money has to last a lot longer. So one of the provisions that has changed in this path, not in the Secure Act, but it's already into law, people who do IRA to Roth conversions, you used to be able to undo them if you didn't like them. So if I converted $10,000 to my Roth, and then that investment, we went into recession and 10 grand dropped to 5, within a certain window, I could undo it and make it look like it never happened, so I didn't know the tax on something that lost money. Well, the undo has been removed, and that is not part of the Secure Act, but with the big tax code changes that happened for 2018, we saw a lot of retirees, not everyone and not every circumstance, but a lot of retirees wound up with a refund because the tax brackets have come down, the rates have come down. And so that's a good opportunity to consider IRA to Roth conversions, because if you move from an IRA to a Roth, that's a taxable event. But once it's in the Roth, it never has those minimum distributions at 70 and a half or maybe 72 if that law passes. And as long as you held it 5 years, it passes down to your beneficiaries income tax free to them as well.
Oh, no kidding.
So there's some pretty neat combination strategies that are out there. And it may sound overly complex if as a viewer, this is the first time you're hearing some of this, but that's an area where we really specialize in and try to help educate people on the options of what's out there.
And with that conversion, there's a potential danger of it affecting Medicare for certain people too, right?
Correct. So you mentioned the age 65. So generally speaking, when you're age 65, you'll go on Medicare as primary, unless you're still fully employed and you have another plan. But generally speaking, if your income is too high, so you can have your pension, you can have your Social Security, you can draw from your portfolio, but if you did a Roth conversion on top of that, that'll add on top of all of your other income sources. So if you go too high in that income bracket, you can start to trigger additional premiums on your Medicare Part B and Part D. And so there's some thresholds, you know, you want to work with your accountant on and or your financial advisor just to be aware of.
Definitely you need a financial advisor. And that's one of those things too, when those triggers happen or when you hit those thresholds in terms of age or dollars, there's not somebody that's going to call you up and say, hey, you need to be aware, unless they've got a financial advisor.
Generally speaking, I mean, there is a lot of information out there nowadays, but I think there's probably also information overload. There's so much that we're not always sure where to grab the right and the accurate information. So that's one of the reasons that at Richmond Brothers we have several CFPs, Certified Financial Planners, you mentioned. And it's also one of the reasons we do a lot of training with Ed Slott and Company out of New York.
Right.
They train advisors, accountants, and lawyers on IRA tax law specifically because there's so many, he calls them screw-ups, out there. And once you've done it, there's very rarely a chance that you can undo a screw-up. And
wow.
It has big tax implications.
Yeah, and so much of, you know, all of the various government requirements and regulations, it's not written so that people can understand it. So it's great that you're here and people can take advantage of your all of your knowledge.
Yep, generally, I appreciate that. It's, I think there was, when the last tax code got updated, there was kind of a floated hope that all of the changes would be able to be put on a postcard.
Yeah.
But I think you and I both know that wasn't, wasn't the reality. And the last topic, I guess, that would be to us a major change with the Secure Act if it passes, has to do with, we touched on beneficiaries. So if you had a parent or a family member pass away and you inherited an IRA or a Roth IRA, the current tax code allows you to receive that IRA as an IRA with no income tax, and then you get to keep deferring that IRA over your entire life.
It becomes your IRA.
Can actually combine it with your own. It will still retain the name of the original owner on it, but if my, for example, parents were to pass away and I'm 39, and I inherit an IRA, my parents' name would still be on it, but for my benefit, and then every year going forward, I have to take a small amount out and stretch it over my life expectancy. So you can see the power of that over the next 40, 45 years until I turn 85. What they've proposed is eliminating the long time stretch IRA, and if I were to inherit an IRA or a Roth, it must be paid out within 10 years. So I think the government believes that will be a tax or a revenue generator. What I don't think they have done the studies on, most people who inherit money generally spend it in less than 10 years anyways. It's kind of a lottery syndrome mentality. Right. So if that happens, it happens and there's nothing anyone can do about it. But ideally, we are a fan of having the stretch go for the beneficiary's life expectancy.
So if you have any questions, and I bet you do, Matt and his team would be happy to meet with you or answer your questions. That's what they do. Also, Matt's the president of the Jackson YMCA board. And what's going on? Anything new?
So a lot has been going on behind the scenes. I was just telling Karen in the green room, it's been a complete joy to have Scott McIntosh from Consumers Energy join the Y board, and he has taken on the monumental task of chairing the Capital Campaign Committee in its entirety. And so the Y has attracted a very high profile, high quality team of up to, we now have between 40 and 45 people working on the campaign. And there'll be a big announcement on July 11th coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So if anyone listening wants to hear some exciting news, stay tuned for that. And I'm sure at some level JTV will be involved in that.
We will. Thanks for all the news and updates.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Bart.
Good to see you, Matt.
Have a great summer.
Yeah, you too, and happy anniversary to Richmond Brothers.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Matt Kerfman, president and co-owner and certified financial advisor at Richmond Brothers. Next.